Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. In part one of this series, after the introduction, we started the philosophical and logical argument as evidence for existence of God with fundamental points number 1 and number 2. Today, we will continue with points 3 through 7. Each point or argument stands on its own. Number 3, contingency. In cosmology, contingency refers to the idea that something could have not existed, meaning its existence is dependent on other factors, while non-contingency describes something that necessarily exists and cannot not exist. Often used in the philosophical argument that if everything is contingent, then there must be a non-contingent cause to explain why anything exists at all, frequently associated with the concept of God. Some Muslim scholars have adopted the definition of self-existence, wajibul wujud, or non-contingency, where they have divided beings into two categories. One being is possible existence, mumkinul wujud, or contingency. It's possible for me to exist or not. 100 years ago, I did not exist, and 100 years from now, I will not exist. The other being is one whose non-existence is impossible, or shall we say his existence is a must, non-contingency. His is self-existent, self-subsisting, wajibul wujud. Along the same lines, any adventitious or contingent or unintended phenomenon has its roots in something of essence or non-contingent. To illustrate, let's give an example. When you notice moisture on the carpet, you can ask, where did it come from? Then you find out someone left a wet towel on the carpet. Then you ask, why was the towel wet? Then you find out someone used the towel to dry themselves. Then you ask, why was he wet? Then you find out he took a shower and got wet. At that point, you do not ask why water is wet, because wetness or moisture is water's essence. You can ask why carpet or the towel is wet, but there is no such a thing as dry water or why water is wet. Adventitious occurrences are things of chance, and they need a cause. If my grandparents did not exist, my parents would not exist, then I would not exist. Same with the trees, stars, and so on. Existence of God is essential and non-contingent, or shall we say existence is God's essence. Thus, one cannot ask where God's existence comes from, because He is the essence of existence. All other things and beings must take their existence from Him. Another example, Earth, Moon, and other stars within our solar system take their light from the sun. Where does the sun get its light from? Nowhere. Sun is bright by its essence. The sun gets its light from nuclear fusion in its core, where hydrogen atoms fuse to create helium. This process releases energy in the form of light. This is why any adventitious or by chance or unintended occurrence has its root in something of essence. God Almighty is the essence of existence. Hence, He must exist in order for anything else to exist. That is why the Quran says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ. There is nothing like Him. His existence is infinite, hence cannot be measured, increased, or decreased. His existence encompasses all things. Nothing in existence has any resemblance to him. Some philosophers have also suggested that his essence is basit, immeasurable, and give the example of the number infinity, which includes all numbers 1, 2, 5, 50, 99, 1,000, 1 million, because it is infinity. It is one number, but all numbers are in it. God's essence is one reality, but it has all perfections, kamalat. Therefore, they say his reality is everything, but not made up of things. Meaning, none of the things we can see or touch are in his divine essence. When we say, for example, he is the ultimate power or absolute sovereign, that means he is everything. He can will and create anything and everything. Meaning, his essence does not have, for example, human in it or stars in it, but can create them. When we say he has knowledge of all things and his knowledge is infinite, that means his knowledge encompasses everything. As a result of such discussion, we conclude that any being, anything that is limited compared to him, is a creation of his, and they do not exist on their own by their essence, because they could possibly exist and they could possibly not exist. Mumkinul wujud. As the Quran says, say, he is Allah, the one. Allah is he on whom all depend, and there is none equal to him. I heard someone expressed it in a mathematical sense and said, you take a number like 10, which depends on 9 to exist. 5 would not count or exist without 4 coming before it. Same with all other numbers. 100 would not be reached until we reach 99. Number 2 relies on number 1 before its value is counted. There's only one number standing on its own with no number with a value before it, or no number to rely on, and that is 1, which stands on its own, and God is one. Number 4, the ultimate source. All persons or personalities or beings at some point cease to exist. If you and I did not exist 200 years ago, how can we be then source of existence? We must then rely on a being who has always existed and continues to exist today and in future. The Quran expresses this in very simple terms. Everything that exists will perish except God, his face. All beings and things will cease to exist except his essence, which is self-subsisting, self-sufficient, eternal, who does not rely on anything else for his existence. The Quran expresses this in various forms, like reliance on he who does not perish, the living, the eternal. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. Allah, there is no God except he, the living, the everlasting. When we look at our surroundings, we do not see an eternal being. That is, everything we see around us has an expiration date. Some at faster pace and some at slower pace. They all change or perish. Therefore, one must seek the creator and sustainer in one's inner being, batin, deep inside. Even Abraham, peace be upon him, made a logical reasoning when he saw the stars, the sun, the moon, all of which set. He then said, I do not love things that set, fade away. These can't be my creator and Lord. Time is his creation and does not encompass him. As the Quran puts it, he is all-encompassing. Argument number 5. Going beyond the original cause or first cause for existence, as discussed in earlier points, there's also cause for sustenance. How is everything sustained? Imagine a factory which produces multiple products with different models and shapes and colors, and while its products keep changing to new ones, the factory itself remains unchanged. As such, the factory enjoys a stable, profitable, and orderly production. Now, what if the factory itself starts changing? Then the connections and relations between the factory program, plan, and production change. Therefore, chaos will take over. Now, imagine the nature, this universal factory that we humans are product of. The trees, the oceans, the animals, day and night, the four seasons are all the product of, is continuously changing. The energies are continuously exchanged, the atoms are changing, and change is constantly occurring on everything. Therefore, not the mathematical and physical laws, but rather phenomena constantly changing. This is a well-known fact. The products of this factory, like us, we're born, we grow, we consume, we get old, and we die, and new generation comes along. Same with vegetations, animals, and so forth. So this factory, not just its product, but also itself is continuously changing. But if the factory itself is changing, then how could laws that govern it are supposed to keep the connections, relations, and ratios so things do not cease to function? How is this order, nizam, with precise mathematical and physical laws be maintained? There must be a higher power, supreme being, who is sustaining the order, nizam, and equilibrium through the laws. Otherwise, there would be chaos and nothing would remain orderly. And that being, from believers' perspective, is God, who is in control and protects and sustains these laws, who is consequently our protector and sustainer. In other words, unlike an architect or a builder who builds a tall building and then disappears, meaning when his work is done, he leaves and has nothing to do with it, with the building that he just built anymore, as the building remains on its own even after his death. God, who is the architect of this universe, this factory, did not leave it alone after he built it, but rather remained in control, supervising and sustaining it so all residents and products can sustain life. Otherwise, there would be chaos and nothing would survive. As the Quran says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُمْسِكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ أَن تَزُولَا وَلَئِنْ زَالَتَا إِنْ أَمْسَكَهُمَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ. Indeed, Allah holds the heavens and the earth from falling apart, from ceasing to function. And if they should cease to function, no one could sustain them, hold them in place after him. If this nizam, order, ceased to exist, no one on earth, no king, no prophet or saint, nor any technology can hold it together or sustain it. Hence, God Almighty is not only the original cause for existence, but also the original cause for sustenance. The Quran also urges mankind to reflect on many signs and evidence surrounding us, everything in motion. Imagine for a moment if the Earth's rotation around its axis, causing day and night, stopped or did not happen. Half of it would be full-time in deep darkness and the other half in full-time brightness. due to the extreme temperatures and exposure alone, in both halves, many forms of life, vegetation and ecosystem would not survive. Then there are 4 seasons, etc., which were possible to be or not to be. However, they are for a reason or purpose. That is why the Quran says, say, have you considered if Allah should make for you the night continuous until the day of resurrection? What deity other than Allah could bring you light? Then will you not hear? Or have you considered if Allah should make for you the day continuous until the day of resurrection? What deity other than Allah could bring you a night in which you may rest? Then will you not see? Then concludes, and out of His mercy He made for you the night and the day, that you may rest therein, and by day seek for His bounty, and that perhaps you will be grateful. Such verses serve as reminders, but also invite us to reflect in many major things we take for granted. As discussed, world's population has been steadily increasing over time. While human life continues, people live, then die, and the next generation comes along, the population itself has been increasing over time. And this increase shows that mankind obviously had a beginning on earth, and all forms of creation, in fact, have fixed life on earth, including earth itself. Because if we look back 1,000 years ago, there were a smaller number of people on earth. 10,000 years back, even fewer. All the way to the point there were no mankind on earth. Same with animals and vegetation. Scientists agree with this as well. So, what happened after no life form? Earth was populated with all life forms, and in case of mankind, all sorts of civilizations, one after another, along with the tools of survival and prosperity. How did all come about? Life itself, from nothingness to life, to a place of all kinds of life form. From the very beginning till now, mankind, animals, and vegetations have been consuming with their heads on the ground, feeding from it, and it keeps providing. This provision does not stop and continues to give because we believers believe God placed blessing, barakah, in it. Thus, He is the creator, innovator, the sustainer, and the one who guides animals through their instincts and mankind through the prophets and books, atoms and molecules through their innate or takwini construct, so on and so forth. This is why the Quran says, how can you disbelieve Allah? Did He not give you life when you were dead? And He will cause you to die and then restore you to life. Then you will return to Him. This is how, from details, one can conclude the full picture or full works. As such, unlike the disconnect between the architect and the structure he built after the completion, there is never a disconnect between God and His creation. God is relevant in every being's life in the universe, including the mankind, of whom some do not even acknowledge His existence. His benevolence reaches everyone and everything. Number 6, order by design and aim. We, the believers, believe that the complexity, order, repeatability, and preciseness of laws, objects, and beings in this universe and the universe itself is based on a plan with purpose or intention. We see the order in all forms of creation, from stars to humans, animals, vegetations, day, night, seasons, and so on. This order, however, is not by their essence or intrinsic or inherent in them, because their physical makeup or what's inherent in them is changeable. A whole tree's inherent physical makeup with all its order can be changed. For example, cut up, which will no longer be called a tree. Same with humans, animals, etc. Their physical makeup would be unchangeable if the order was inherent in them, in their essence. And then there are things that are opposite. For example, you cannot find a water that is dry. Wetness or moisture is inherent in the water, or moisture is in water's essence. Can you find an oil that is not oily? Can you find a light without light? No, because these items have attributes that are inherent in their essence, intrinsic to them. However, things that are changeable, then their attributes, such as their order and design, are not inherent in them. A tree can change to not being a tree. Now that its order and physical makeup is not in its essence, simply put, that means its order and design has been given to it. Materialists say, we agree, order is not in their essence, but their order is by accident. The order is not by design, rather by accident, by chance. Muslim scholars say accident or chance is always in minority, if not extreme minority. The materialists argue that if there is a probability of anything occurring by accident, then no matter how small of a chance, that is what happened. To demonstrate the absurdity of accidental claims, let's give a couple of examples, because in accidental occurrences, there's no pre-plan, aim, or intention. Let's say you wanted to meet someone you know, but you have no idea where he or she is. You then go to the grocery store, and by accident, you run into him. You had no idea you were going to meet him there, or no plan for this occurrence where you actually contacted him ahead of time and get his address and then drive there aiming to meet him. So the meeting was purely by accident. Now, what are the chances that every time you go to that same grocery store or any other store from now on, you would meet your friend there? That is how ridiculous this accidental claim is. Accidents are always in minority. If they were in majority, then they would not be called accidents anymore. If you met your friend in every store, it would be by design or pre-plan or on purpose. Order by design is always in majority, if not all, in this universe. From atoms, molecules, and genes to humans, nature, stars, and galaxies. Another example, let's say you and I go out in a field and you ask me to throw 10 coins in the air, one after the other, while you try to aim with a rifle and hit them one after the other as I throw them in the air. Let's say you hit the first 3 or 4. One might say that was a coincidence, a chance. You got lucky. But if you hit 10 out of 10, then one would think you have a great aim and some training behind it. The more coins you hit, the more you will demonstrate your skill and precise aim. At the same time, you demonstrate there is less and less probability of you being lucky and hitting the coins by chance. What if you hit the coins million out of million times? What are the chances or probability of your success as accident. The atheists keep bringing up the probability of something happening. Well, with literally billions of things in precise operation, is there really room to even discuss probability or accidental occurrence? Hence, this order is not inherent in things and forms of creation because it's not in their essence. Once agreed on the order by all, atheists and materialists included, then we say there must be a source who put them in order by design because of enormous number of orders in the universe. Order is by design and aim, not by accident, because order is in majority, and majority can never be accident. Look at the fact that all forms of creation come in pairs, as in animals and humans. If it was by accident, it would not be in majority, if not at all, demonstrating the purpose behind having both male and female, which is procreation and survival of the species, through attraction of both genders to each other. All creatures come in pair, repeatedly. Majority cannot be by accident. All to show the all-wise, all-knowing creator of this universe had an aim and purpose for all forms of creation within the ecosystem, all of which have scientific laws behind them. Among philosophers, for example, Immanuel Kant looked at all arguments presented by philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, and others, and criticized them. However, when it came to the order by design argument and the original cause argument, he pretty much surrendered and could not reject and said, the universe with such order shows there is a creator. Then later on, closer to our times, you had Bertrand Russell, another philosopher who was rather cynical and stubborn in his position as an atheist, and wrote a book called Why I'm Not Christian, in which he rejects God's existence, who also wrote a book called A History of Western Philosophy, in which mentions Leibniz, the German mathematician and philosopher who is mostly noted for his optimism, i.e., his conclusion that our world is, in a qualified sense, the best possible world that God could have created. Leibniz, along with Descartes and Spinoza, were the three influential early modern rationalists. Russell says, we can take Leibniz's rationalism and reasoning, remove its conditions, and it will result in order by design argument as evidence toward the creator. He said, if we look at the known universe, we will see and find things that we cannot call result of blind nature's work. Rather, it is more logical to see them as a good aim and intention. There's nothing wrong with this argument from logical perspective. Preambles and signs of it in this world are real because they have been sensed through experimental rules. Then he backtracks and says there is a difference between this argument and other philosophical arguments. This argument proves existence of a God that does not necessarily need to possess all the supernatural attributes others have described for him. He need not be the all-knowing, all-able, the powerful. It is sufficient that his power and knowledge is much higher than ours. This argument does not show the limits. This is the only objection Bertrand Russell has with the order by design argument. Otherwise, in his book, he acknowledges the validity of this argument despite of his skepticism on the topic. There are many other non-believing philosophers who have acknowledged the validity of order by design argument. This argument was presented by the Quran 14 centuries ago as it draws readers' attention to the order by design in his surrounding nature that nurtures him and our experiences here and now. The Quran insists that this universe had a plan called Lawh Mahfuz, guarded tablet, or a blueprint. Materialists think there was no plan, no purpose, no aim, no blueprint in creating the universe and the nature. It just put itself in motion until it reached this juncture, pretty much an accidental occurrence. We say to materialists, this world has a pre-plan or a blueprint to produce and repeat in precise order, quantity, and due proportion. As the science is advanced, this argument is reinforced by man's discoveries, deeper understanding, and experiences from outer to inner world in molecules and atomic levels. Today, to Bertrand Russell, who said the argument of order by design is a logical one, but we cannot say the Creator has unlimited power, the answer is, look at the stars that are millions of light years away from us. And at the same time, the tremendous amount of energy harnessed within atoms just on Earth, of which if only few were released or their order was disturbed, it would create hell on Earth. What kind of limited power can create and control all these? Can you put a limit on such a power? Man has already experienced the destruction of atomic energy. Furthermore, if we consider the one who created all the stars, galaxies, and what's in them as a limited power, a finite power, then he himself becomes a creation, not the creator, because he has limits, limited knowledge and power. He would not be ever living, self-subsisting. His essence and attributes have to be infinite. Are you telling me every form of creation, man, animal, vegetation, stars, galaxies, everyone and every time, the order and repeatability based on precise laws, all started by huge number of accidents? That is trillions of accidents for trillions of things and beings or phenomena. All you need to do, look at the human development at mother's womb. From sperm and egg mixture to various stages where a complete human being is developed in mother's womb before entering the world, as the Quran laid it out 1400 years ago, before science of embryology was known to mankind, all aimed to live outside of the womb in this world. Now, with the science of genetics, which is a field of study that focuses on genes, how they function and how traits are passed from the generation to the next through inheritance, many details like the color of eyes, hair, etc. can be identified. In all organisms, the essence of fertilization is, in fact, the fusion of the hereditary material of two different sex cells. And this is not exclusive to humans. Hence, embryo is the blueprint for that species. Conversely, an apple tree has a seed within which its plan of growth once it's planted. No chance of an apple seed producing a watermelon by accident, because the seed has an apple tree blueprint. So all beings and things in this world carry on their existence based on a prior plan, hence purpose. Furthermore, whatever we see around us, the original material this universe was formed with, like gases, as the Quran says, then other forms carried the elements of material with which things in this world are made out of. However, while these elements had the potential, they had to come together according to a plan, an execution plan, in order to create the things and beings we have in existence today. Who could then be the architect, the planner, and the executor of this plan? This plan is seen in everything, whether it is in an embryo, genes, or plant seeds, or an atom. Then there is the complexity and order within these forms of creation. From Adam, which consists of an extremely small positively charged nucleus surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons, which materialists, by the way, have not been able to pin down as accident, given its potential for destruction if it was not designed precisely as is, which harnesses its energy, to molecules in the body, to the stars and galaxies, with the order and precise laws in their motion and gravitational force. For example, the human eye contains approximately hundreds of millions of molecules, primarily located within the photoreceptor cells of the retina, all of which must work in harmony in order for us to see things properly. Otherwise, we cannot see the depth, color, etc. So, are we to think these hundreds of millions of cells formed and worked together by an accident? Interestingly, there is an inherent example we can draw upon here, which is for all the inventions mankind has made, especially in recent centuries, in communication, transportation, medicine, and so forth, the raw material has existed for thousands of years on Earth. But it took man's learning, knowledge, planning, and ingenuity, which was also given to him, to put them together and devise them and invent. Why did man's inventions not create themselves? Why didn't transistor create itself out of silicon? Silicon existed long before. Even a more fundamental question: where did all the raw material without which man could not exist or survive, let alone invent with, on Earth, come from? Did they create themselves? Were they created by accident? What about the mankind himself, the inventor, who has invented many things for himself? Who invented the inventor? As we will discuss next, how could the dumb nature, which has no wisdom, no awareness of itself, no intellect, create a being with intellect, wisdom, and self-awareness? Why is it that when a tablet, a piece of rock, or a piece of wood with a few simple lines carved on it are discovered in a cave, atheists immediately agree there was an intelligent being, such as human, who did it? Yet, when it comes to all the wonders and signs screaming as evidence for existence of God, they deny and resort to their old baseless claims. Were they present when these carvings were done? How did they conclude an intelligent being did it? A human did it. You may not be able to prove who did the carving because you were not there and you cannot go back in time to find out, but you can be certain that somebody did the carving. The evidence is right there in front of you. Yet, to them, that does not apply when we talk about God, the creator and designer of all. Number 7, nature as the creator. Materialists say that nature created everything. There is a philosophical and intellectual maxim that says one cannot give that which he does not have. If we were created by this nature, as the materialists put it, does the nature or the material in the nature possess intelligence and self-awareness, consciousness, that which it has supposedly given to us humans? Does it possess will, irada, which it has supposedly given to you and I and billions of others? No. Everyone agrees the nature, which consists of a variety of material, is an unconscious thing or insensible phenomenon. It does not have the intelligence and awareness that humans have, nor is it aware of itself. The air, the water, the soil, etc., all of which make up our material world or nature. Therefore, this irada, will, this intellect, shu'ur, this consciousness and self-awareness of ours must have a different source. In other words, a source that does have will, intellect and sense, knowledge and consciousness, which then can be given to us. Otherwise, that which does not have cannot give. Now, suppose someone comes and says, no, this material world, nature, possesses intellect and sense and consciousness. We ask then, is nature's intellect and sense, shu'ur, and consciousness apparent or hidden? He will say hidden, of course, and adds, how can intellect and sense and consciousness be physically seen? We respond, all right, then, you believe in a general overarching intelligence and consciousness in our universe whom we call God. You call it hidden or overarching intelligence and consciousness, but we call him the unseen God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has the ultimate consciousness, will, knowledge, and power, who sees everything. Otherwise, we all agree the soil, the water, the forest, mountains, etc., do not have will and intelligence. Therefore, the divine attributes can also be recognized this way. The one who gave you and I the awareness must have the ultimate awareness himself. The one who gave you and I the power, albeit limited power, he must possess the ultimate unlimited power himself. The one who gave you and I knowledge must possess the ultimate infinite knowledge himself. Except that our power, our knowledge, and awareness are a very small fraction of his, where his are infinite and immutable. It is amazing how few so-called philosophers in the West could not understand these points we raised, which are the alphabets of philosophy. They looked at the concept of God so superficially. In his book, Why I'm Not Christian, Bertrand Russell, who was a 20th century philosopher and mathematician, said, I, for a long time, accepted the argument of the first cause until one day, at the age of 18, I read John Stuart Mill's autobiography, and I found this sentence there. My father taught me that the question, who made me, cannot be answered, since it immediately suggests the further question, who made God? Russell then says, that very simple sentence showed me, as I still think, the fallacy in the argument of the first cause. If everything must have a cause, then God must have a cause. If there can be anything without a cause, and listen to this, it may just as well be the world as God, meaning the world can be God. I was very surprised when I read this from a 20th century philosopher such as Bertrand Russell, who had influence on mathematics, logic, and analytical philosophy, who should have such a simple and shallow view and understanding on the concept of God and the first cause. Just because he had some issues with concept of God, as in Christianity's Trinity and Hinduism, does not mean concept of God is limited to definition of those two. A philosopher of his caliber should have looked at other faiths unbiasedly and made scholarly judgment. So we ask him, when they ask you who created you, and you said God, and then when they ask you who created God, you could not answer that question, which the answer is the God who is eternal, meaning has existed, exists, and will continue to exist and is uncreated. You evaded the debate based on a question you could not answer. At the end, what was your belief? What was your conclusion? You said it is the material world that existed in the past, exists now, and will exist without a cause. That is what you said. We say to you, Mr. Russell, with your answer, you just admitted to what you were running away from or trying to avoid. You just acknowledged that the world or the nature who created you is eternal and uncreated, meaning as the first cause. The believers call the uncreated who is eternal as God, and materialists call it material or energy. Thus, mankind has no choice but to acknowledge a source that is the origin. The difference is that when atheists like Bertrand Russell or any materialist point to an origin, they describe it as eternal and uncreated, which is a material phenomenon without intellect, self-awareness, and will, yet has produced or created, as you say, beings with all forms of intelligence, awareness, and will. How could they be product of an original source which lacks all the above? In addition, our definition of God is that He is the ultimate power, beyond any power. Meaning, if we assign a number to every source of energy or power, perhaps give the lowest number like 1 and 2 to microbes or molecules, then 3 and 4 to other forms with higher power or energy, then higher 30, 40, 100, and so on. We then ask, in terms of power, is there an entity that earns the highest number for the highest power? You say, of course there is. We then say that entity cannot be a creation, because if it is, then there has to be another power or force who has higher power who created it, one who is beyond his power. When you get to the highest power, above whom there is no higher force, no higher power, that is when you stop. Eventually, you will reach an entity who is the ultimate source of power, above whom there is none. His power is infinite. In addition, as discussed earlier, we believe the origin and source of the universe is non-contingent, self-existent, wajibul wujud. All other things can be non-existent or contingent, possible existent, mumkin al-wujud. You and I did not exist 200 years ago and will not exist 200 years from now. So many things, and in fact, everything that exists it is possible for it not to exist. We believe the being who is the originator and the source cannot not exist. He must exist. His existence is necessary for others to exist. Hence, it is more befitting for the one who is necessary to exist, the non-contingent, to exist than the one who is contingent or possible not to exist. Then, by logic, when the one who can be non-existent does exist, like us and our surrounding, how could then the one who cannot not exist, the non-contingent, not exist? Goes back to the fact that anything that exists by its very essence takes priority over anything that its essence is advantageous or contingent, as shown by examples. A lighthouse cannot be lit without the reality and existence of source of light in it. If ground is wet, the reality and existence of source of moisture, which is water, cannot be denied. Of course, Russell could not deny the order by design argument later in his life, as discussed earlier. Furthermore, how could a dumb nature, a dumb factory, produce so many different types, categories, and colors of products from the exact same material? You do not have to go to a forest if you grow your own fruit, trees, and vegetables in your backyard. Given the same piece of land in your backyard, with the same soil, same water, same sunlight, and the same weather, this dumb factory we call nature could only produce one kind of fruit or vegetable. Yet, it produces all kinds of fruits, vegetables, with different sizes, shapes, colors, and tastes. Some sweet, some sour, some more watery, some not. All variety produced with the same water, soil, and sunlight. How can a dumb factory do this? You might say, it just does. Or you might say, I never thought of that. Well, we don't think about these things because we are used to them. They have become routines in our eyes and minds. Same with oceans, where from the same water you have many different species of fish and vegetations grow in it, all of which indicate there is a design and plan behind this ecosystem. These phenomena, which I call miracles, but the Quran calls them as signs, are all around us and occur every day, non-stop. If you look inside the watermelon seed, the seed, you will see nothing like a watermelon inside it. Not the color, not the taste, not the water, not the size. Yet that seed placed in the ground will produce a fruit that looks nothing like its seed. Next to the watermelon, if you plant an apple seed, that is what you will get, which is completely different than watermelon, and you will do so repeatedly. Can a dumb factory without a blueprint, without a product plan, produce such variety and aim it to cater to another form of creation's consumption? Points number 1 through 7 we raised here as arguments, among many, for existence of God are all alphabets of philosophy and logic, meaning they are intellectual reasoning, much like mathematical science. They are not exclusive to Eastern philosophers like Ibn Sina, Ghazali, Ibn Rushd, Averroes, and others. They also belong to Western philosophers like Immanuel Kant, George Hegel, and René Descartes, and many more, who more or less acknowledge these points. There are more arguments, but we will stop here and continue with the scientific perspective next time, inshallah. Wassalamu ala man ittaba'a al-huda.